This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus traditional issues like rogues, dialers, rootkits, exploits, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. And to learn more and get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. All right. So, an interesting security thing happened this week. Uber was hacked. But in a weird story, it's not necessarily that Uber was hacked that makes it interesting, right? Companies are getting hacked all the time. T-Mobile seems like they're getting hacked every week. Not really, but you know what I mean. A couple of big ones in the last couple of years. But Uber's is interesting because of exactly what happened. So an 18-year-old, let's start out by saying what we know so far is by admission from an anonymous hacker. So everything theoretically can be taken with a grain of salt except the internal details that security researchers have confirmed. So what we know about the person is all questionable. So an 18-year-old, sarcasm quotes or unknown quotes, found the WhatsApp number of an Uber employee and used that to initiate a pretty impressive phishing / social engineering attack. What they did was they put up a fake Uber admin panel login because they knew the admin panel login page. They put up a fake one and then sent the link to the WhatsApp number for this employee, who then went to the URL and put in their username and password, which was then stored by the attacker. But Uber, of course, uses multi-factor authentication. In this case, the type where it comes up and says, hey, did you authorize this? Yes or no, right? Similar to signing into, say, a Microsoft account using Microsoft Authenticator. So essentially, the attacker just kept sending these requests to the employee's phone over and over and over. And eventually the employee hit yes. Now, it could have been out of exhaustion or confusion, or in my guess, more likely they were trying to hit the back button in an app and the notification came up over top, because I think we've all accidentally hit a notification that's come up on our phone when we're trying to hit the back button in the top left corner. So we don't know how it happened, but they did approve the multi-factor authentication request. And so we're in. Once the attacker was in, they discovered a network share that had a bunch of PowerShell scripts in it. In those scripts, which were intended to automate certain admin functions, was a username and password. And so now we've got higher access into the system. But what we don't know is how far they went. Did they have access to the Amazon Web Services account, theoretically, to the company's G Suite, theoretically? But it does not appear that any of that stuff was touched. Instead, what happened is the attacker went, using the company's VPN, went into their Slack channel and posted, let's see, what was I announce I am a hacker and Uber has suffered a data breach. Now, that's just one of the posts, but it's pretty upfront about who they are and what they're up to. From there, some information about being 18 came about. There's some external communications allegedly coming from this individual, including admitting that it was a social engineering attack, got somebody to give them their password. But the thing that here's where it gets weirder. In Slack, this individual starts posting about the political nature of Uber and their relationship with their drivers, and they don't pay them enough. The whole thing is so weird to me, Avram. Every turn of this just seems weirder than the last.
Yeah, I mean, this. What did this person actually do, and what was their goal? Just to get on the company Slack and say things to the employees about what they think of the company's policies?
I guess, maybe. So far, the company and third-party security researchers have confirmed the hack. They have confirmed certain bits of access, but they're currently still researching to see if the information that was taken from the network share from the PowerShell scripts was used to actually access anything or not. So we know they got into the network. We know that they got into the system. They know they got onto the network. We know that they got into the VPN. We know that they got onto Slack. Those bits we know for sure. Past that, there's no current evidence that they did anything other than troll Slack or troll Uber on their own Slack.
This time, it's
This time.
personal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird.
It strikes me as it was not a financially motivated crime.
Right.
It was somebody who's angry.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean they
Absolutely.
couldn't have stolen data as well, but somebody who is angry and wants you to know that they're angry. So look at someone who is a former employee or a former driver, which of course that could be
Anybody.
so many people, so whatever. But it was someone who was angry, you know. And the fact that they know about what the control panel looks like also suggests someone who worked there.
I hadn't considered that. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
I mean, I don't know who sees the control panel. Do drivers see the control panel? Does
They use an
only
app.
so if only the staff sees it, then how would you know to make a convincing looking simile?
Unless you or somebody you're working with has direct access to it. Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that.
Right.
So unless somebody posted a screenshot, maybe there's a screenshot out there, but it doesn't seem likely. It's not the kind of thing that seems like would have happened. So yeah, that's a good point. And a really great place to start looking. With that, I would take that I'm 18 thing with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I think that's obviously. I mean, it's a very poor attempt to try to throw people off the trail, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because on the other hand, yes, an 18-year-old might have a little bravado about being only 18 and tricking a employee into giving up their credentials. But yeah, I think the amount of information that would be required to make this possible would require an employee and therefore likely not an 18-year-old. Somebody who would have had access to the login screen for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless maybe one of their parents works for Uber.
Yeah, could be that, but they definitely have a relationship to it. So yeah, I mean, it's
not a rando.
It's a disgruntled person. Oh well, I mean, I don't know if I mean, I don't really use Uber much anyway, but I don't know. I mean, would you worry about them having your payment info if you were an Uber customer?
Potentially.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
At least they don't have your social security number.
True.
Unless you're an employee, then maybe they do.
route information, common start and stops, maybe. That kind of information might have some value on the dark web if financial is the motive. Um, uh, the Yeah, that might have some value out on the dark web, but there'd have to be, like, you'd have to know how to get there, and an 18-year-old isn't going to be it. So again, that brings us to either it's probably possibly the child of an employee or a former employee. So yeah, it's simply just a weird and fascinating story, and they're doing their research now. There's the possibility that nothing further needs to be done, other than changing passwords and stuff internally. They did shut down part of their internal network for a while when this was first revealed, but seems like everything's back up and running now. Usernames and passwords may have been changed, but we'll know hopefully soon whether or not personal information was accessed, and if so, what the company plans to do to protect those who are affected.
Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.